Hey guys, it's Mike with On Point Preparedness, and before I get to the topic of this video, first I want to thank everyone for your really kind comments, liking and sharing the videos. It really keeps me going. Really appreciate all the positive feedback. If you look through a lot of the comments of my videos, I try to keep engaged and respond to people. Some of the videos get a little bit too popular and I couldn't respond back to everyone, but do reach out to me, ask questions. I'll try to get to you guys as soon as I can. And this video is actually a user request. Actually, a couple of you. I think there was like 5 of you that had requested, how do I begin preparing? And it's quite a frightening thing to think about, right? When you see all the events that are occurring, and if you haven't done a whole lot of preparing and you're sort of lost and frantic, you don't know what to do, it'd be good to have a nice place to start. I teach a class of Prepping 101 here in my region, and it really hits your heart when you see people and they come to learn about how our money system works, and they come to learn about all the current events, and then they're just frantic, what do I do, what do I do? And the first thing is just to keep calm, and I think a lot of my viewers appreciate the fact that I'm calm in my video. It's not a whole lot of sensational hype and try to scare you. Keep as calm as you can and have a level head, and you do what's within your means. So keep calm if you if you haven't done a whole lot of prepping, or even if you have. I think this would be a good video for you as well, because I am not going to get into you need to buy 100 pounds of beans the first month, 200 pounds of rice the second month, this and that and that. It's actually, I'm going to give you the basics. I'm going to give you a hierarchy, and you design it according to how much money you make, where you're located, what your individual needs are. Because someone will say, oh, you have to have a gun. Absolutely, that's the first thing you need to do. But for another person, it might be because they have some type of ailment like diabetes and they need life-saving medication, so they need to prepare on that first. So very individualistic preparedness needs, depending on a whole variety of situations. And how I'm going to design this for you should at least give you a structured path forward so that you can basically custom tailor it to yourself. So without further ado, let's get into the PowerPoint presentation. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. And this is Preparedness 101. But even if you have been preparing for a couple months or even a couple years, I do strongly suggest that you stick with me for the next couple of slides, because the structured hierarchy and principles of preparedness that I am going to give you will help, regardless of how long you have prepared. But before we get to that, I do want to offer you a little bit of words of wisdom based on my experience. So, preppers as a whole are thought of in a whole variety of ways, and I made this word cloud, and so we're sometimes thought as dangerous, we're crazy, doomsday preppers, conspiracy theorists, we're extremist or fringe, uneducated. That's a big one. Lots of people say preppers are just poor, uneducated folks that have nothing better to do with their time. But again, let me draw on some personal experience here. I operate a preparedness community here in Cincinnati, and there is about 400 members in it. And I can tell you that it is comprised of dentists, doctors, current and former military, policemen, firefighters, financial analysts, white-collar workers, blue-collar workers. Doesn't matter. It spans the gamut. People are waking up in droves, and it is not any particular demographic. So when you feel isolated and alone because you can hear the bell that tolls for us, but no one else can, and you feel extremely lonely, know that you are not crazy. You are not just some uneducated fool. There are lots of people all across the world that come from all different backgrounds that are preparing. And so if it is online where you find your safe haven, so be it. I just hope you guys take heed to the fact that it's not just any particular demographic. There's lots of people preparing. So what is preparedness? Really just think about it as self-reliance. Think about everything that you do in a day, and what if that support mechanism wasn't there? And try to figure out how to work around it and rely only on yourself. You can think about self-reliance or sufficiency or preparedness two different ways. You can think about it as short-term insurance or a long-term lifestyle. I really like thinking about it as insurance, which I'll get to in the next slide or two. Next slide. Why it's especially necessary today? Well, a lot of you guys already know this. We are incredibly dependent, whether we think about our public utilities, the food that comes from our grocery stores. Gasoline has made it very convenient to travel long distances for work. Our communications, medical dependency, that's a terrible one. We are so dependent on all sorts of prescription meds, cholesterol meds, ADHD meds. Again, just another form of dependency. We're dependent on debt and bank bailouts and the government as a whole. So we need to strip ourselves of this dependency and really get into this self-reliance and preparedness movement. So I said it can be in two forms, insurance policy or long-term lifestyle. If you have a significant other, family, or friends that say you're crazy doing all this preparedness, tell them it is your insurance policy. Tell them to think about their home insurance policy or renters. Think about their life insurance if they have it, or their car insurance. And take car insurance. I mean, a lot of people have cars. Think about the $50 to $60 per month that you put into a car insurance, and you extrapolate that by a year, and then you extrapolate that by all the years that you haven't had an accident. So, if mine was $50 a month, and that's $600 a year, and I've been driving for 10 years, it's $6,000. So I've spent $6,000 for insurance, and I haven't cashed in on that at all, and I can't get any of that back. Add to that your home insurance policy and everything else. There's thousands of dollars that you're not getting back. But for preppers, when you buy a gun, an ammo, camping stuff like a backpack, sleeping bag, you get some food that preferably you eat on a regular basis. You just stock up with more of it. You will use that in time. It is an insurance policy that is giving you protection, but you'll always be able to cash in on it most of the time. There's a couple things, maybe like gas masks, that you make that investment. You can't really use that every day unless you have a kid with really stinky diapers or something. But most of the stuff that we have, you'll be able to cash in on. Whereas a lot of the other insurance policies you have, you'll never see that money again unless something catastrophic happens to you. So it's sort of like a lose-lose. So really put that in front of people that give you the cold shoulder. And if you think about it as an insurance policy, they may lighten up on you a little bit. The other aspect is the long-term lifestyle, and that takes considerably more energy. And so a real good example of that is you can buy in bulk if you have the means and money to, and just arrives at your door and you tuck it away. But canning, that requires education, pre-planning, effort. You need to know recipes and jot down all those recipes in your books. You need to learn from people. It's considerably more effort and resource to live a lifestyle of preparedness. And so my recommendation is you start via the insurance policy, and if you want to take it a little bit further and you think it's something of a lifestyle habit that you'd like to pursue, do that secondary. So here is the main educational point of this presentation that is for beginners or people that are seasoned preppers. And that is to organize your prepping into a hierarchy chart. So here are the main buckets of preparedness. There could be more that you can add, but these are the ones that work for me. This is your top tier. And so, a lot of people recognize this 3-3-3 rule: 3 minutes without air and you'll die, 3 hours without shelter in extreme circumstances, you'll die, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food. But then I also added a couple additional categories to this. Security, medical hygiene and health is a big bucket. Communications and travel planning and community, mental, emotional, and faith. These are going to be all the big buckets that you're going to need to focus on. And how you arrange these buckets is in a hierarchy. Now, like I said at the beginning of this, in the intro, people's situations are all very individualistic. One person may have more money than the other, or one person may live in a different area that's more conducive to finding natural resources than another person. There's no one-size-fits-all plan for preparations. So the best thing that you can do for yourself is just bracket out all the major categories and then start adding tier after tier after tier and just brainstorm your whole session out. I just did 2 very small bracketing out here just as an example so you can see it. So let's talk about shelter as a major category. All right, so if I need to take care of my shelter, what all subcategories might that be? Well, I look at my second tier and I'm like, well, clothes. I need to make sure I can clothe myself, shelter on my person, or maybe that even includes bug spray for the summertime. Locations. Do I have multiple locations to seek shelter? Do I have friends or family or other preppers that I can go to? Bushcraft skills. If I get displaced and I can't make it to my location, do I have the skills to know how to pitch up a tarp or build a bushcraft shelter? Heating and cooling. If I have shelter and there are no public utilities like electric or gas, can I heat it? Well, let's drop that down another tier. Okay, well, I'm going to get a good wood stove. Well, that's well and good, but then, heck, let's drop that down another tier. Well, I'm going to, first, it's not depicted in this hierarchy, but I'm going to need to make sure that there is wood close by, because if there's no gas, I can't be transporting wood to my wood stove via my car. I'm going to need a way to chop that up, so I'm going to need an axe. But if that axe handle breaks, I'm going to need extra axe handles. I'm going to need to be able to sharpen that axe. I'm going to need a saw to be able to efficiently cut the wood logs to size to fit in my wood stove. I may need another different type of sharpener for the saw if I have a crosscut saw. So there may be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tiers. This is, a process that you're going to have to go through in every single category. Looking at water, how do I store it? How do I purify it? Where can I find it? You can add to each of those any type of sub-tier. So purification, well, I can buy a man-made filter like a Berkey, or I can get an MSR portable filter for my bug-out bag. But then do I have another tier which is more bushcraft skills? Do I know how to basically purify water right from the stream? So you need to do this brainstorming session. Think about everything you can possibly think about in every single one of these major categories, and then look at your own individual situation and start marking things off. So maybe your shelter is in pretty good standing. Maybe you have a really nice location out on a farm way away from the public. Maybe you have some friends and family that live in a different state that also have similar situations. So, hey, you can cross off your shelter locations and you're fine and dandy. But maybe you'll start looking at your transportation planning a little bit more closely. Maybe that's more valuable to you. But the main thing to do is be organized about all this. So without further ado, I'm just going to give you just a brief little intro to some of these categories. Again, I can't cover everything because preparedness and self-reliance is such a huge topic, but this is the main message. This right here. You use those categories that I gave you here, and I will have this presentation available for download in the YouTube description. You take all these major categories and drop it down a tier. And then drop it down another tier and drop it down another tier. Keep asking the questions, what if, what if, what if? And this may take you a couple days over several weeks. But when you have your thoughts out on paper, it makes it so much easier to prepare. So we're going to fly through some of these real quick. I do apologize, but air, for that bucket, N95 masks, they work great, and they have a lot of range of applications. So World Trade Center, lots of people had respiratory issues because of the debris that fell down there. This article that I have here from this weather center said that fungal infections followed after a tornado ran through the area and stirred up the dirt. So an N95 mask would certainly help you in that situation too. They're cheap. They're easy to get from out-of-the-box stores. I would get one. Air quality can be extrapolated to gas masks and iodine pills and all sorts of other stuff too, but we won't go there. Water, storage options. There's 55-gallon buckets on Craigslist. Make sure you buy the right type because some of them are not for food. 5-gallon jugs. I love those way more than milk jugs. Those are the ones that sit on top of the water dispensers. They have a nice built-in handle so you can grab 2 of them, throw them in your car and bug out. Make sure you're aware of all the different types of treatment options. There's boiling, filtration, chemical, and distillation. Again, we're not going to go into all of these, but this gives you some ideas of sub-tiers to think about. Your shelter. As we worked through that little hierarchy diagram, I showed you that shelter is not simply having a roof over your head. It is clothing. It is, clothing for warmth and cooling, protection from poison ivy and insects and other poisonous plants, physical injury even. You can think about how you will fortify or alarm your shelter for security purposes. We talked about heating and location. Shelter can be a very big bucket, and you just need to think about all these little sub-tiers to bracket it out. Your food storage. Ideally, you want to find food that you regularly eat. Do not buy a lot of bulk food that you have not tried because it'll lead to some terrible digestive issues. The best way to get started, I would say, go to your local supermarket. And even if they don't sell it, you can go to their customer service and order it special order at no additional charge. But a 50-pound bag of rice. Some of the stores around me sell 50 pounds for $20. That is a really nice return on investment to have 50 pounds. 50 pounds is a lot of rice. And when you, cook that up, that's going to feed you for quite a while. And, again, ask what if you have 50 pounds of rice, do you have sufficient water to cook it? Always question. Use oxygen absorbers and mylar bags in 5-gallon buckets to protect your grains. You can do it yourself. There's a lot of information. You can also use vacuum sealers and such. Long-term food supply. This is a very, very important point of food storage. There's a psychological component to food. If you think that you're going to get away with a year's supply of rice, beans, and corn, think again, because you're going to be severely depressed from food lethargy. Go to herbalcom.com, and there you can buy bulk spices. You can buy a pound or more for $5 to $7. So I spent like $50 there, and I got lots of poundage of spices, all different types of spices. Don't go to the supermarket and buy those dinky little 1 or 2 ounce bottles of spice for like $7. I'll put the link to Herbalcom below. Really good store. Just like I talked about for the rice, know what you need to prepare your food. If you have wheat, do you have a mill? If you have things that soak up a lot of water, do you have enough water? And for travel, I really like those Mountain House 2-serving meals because, you don't need to buy a whole lot of them, and they're very lightweight and fit in your bag. Security, you can bucket this out to have situational awareness training, what gun you want to have for any particular purpose. Personally, I like shotgun for close quarters and home defense. My pistol is a backup or concealed carry weapon, and my battle rifle for anything 50 yards and further. Put it on your list to get your concealed carry permit, and you can bucket out all the different trainings that you want to attend. Hygiene and medical, these are some pretty interesting stats. Disease and exposure and famine accounted for this amount of soldier deaths. Civil War, 2/3 of soldiers. World War I, 1/3 of soldiers. 1990 to 2008, less than 15%. So it kept on decreasing, and a lot of these may be where the soldier was shot and then infection ensued afterwards. But still, they're a very, very, very impactful part of preparation that can kill you, if you get injured or whatnot. Contributing factors towards the disease. So if you think about an ill-prepared population, think about all the things that start to go downhill in an SHTF event. Hygiene and trash and public utilities, gone. Supplies and medical facilities, gone. displacement of people gone, crowding and riots, and that deceased persons. If you look at the Indonesian tsunami or Hurricane Katrina, there were dead bodies floating in the water. Something you don't really want to consider, that in an SHTF moment there'll be decaying bodies, but it's a reality that you may have to address. And so all factors that contribute to disease, or the environment's disturbed, like we saw in that fungal infection through the tornado, or the food or water sources are contaminated. Health, I talked about how we have a dependency on all sorts of medications. We're an overweight society. If you start eating healthier and exercising and reducing dependency on medications, and that's that much less you need to prepare for. Easier said than done, I understand, but it's something we need to focus on. And then for training for all this, there's also American Red Cross for CPR and first aid certifications. Patriot Nurse is also a really good reference if you want to have some more preparedness-centric first aid medical training. Do seek her out. This is a really cool experiment that I did as a microbiologist in my former life. And so here's an experiment where we handled raw chicken, and plated our hands. You can see all the bacteria on our hands, and then we washed our hands with warm water and Dawn dish detergent, and it doesn't look a whole lot cleaner, right? So mom and dad were right when they said sing your ABCs A to Z while washing your hands, because yes, bacteria does stay on your hands pretty good. So when you're butchering animals or you're wading through contaminated water or anything like that, recognize that your hands are the highest contributor to disease, so you don't want to get them to your face or eyes or mouth, and you always want to wash them thoroughly. Also, wastes, your toilets still can work. You can use water to flush your toilets, but again, that's sort of wasteful unless you have a lot of water. You can also line them with kitty litter or sand and a garbage bag and use your toilet. If you're not near a toilet and you're out in the bush, make sure that you do your business pretty far away from your living areas. Make sure that if it rains, that the rain's not going to carry that waste all the way down to your campsite. Also good practice to bury it at least half a foot in the ground. Dental hygiene, right? So stock up on those toothbrushes and toothpaste and everything. Try to eat better, because that impacts our dental health. These dental scalers that you can buy on Amazon or eBay, very good. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to use them, just to get the plaque off from around your teeth. And get all your major dental work done now. Like I said, there is a dentist in our preparedness group, and I have actually relied on him to replace a crown, which he did for me yesterday. It's working great. Thank you. So really good to network with people that have trade skills. Tell you what, he did an excellent job. There's some non-commercial alternatives, but really, make sure you just have toothpaste, toothbrush, rinse and floss and all that stuff. And the big thing is get all your major dental work done now. I knew it is expensive, but think Castaway. Communications. I really don't want to extrapolate this too much, because I could do a whole nother video on it. But have a communication plan. That's what you need to do with your family, is say our first tier will be cell phones. If cell phones don't work, maybe we have a landline that will work. We'll try that. If that doesn't work, we'll try our ham radios, and we'll try to use this repeater. And if the repeater's down, then, maybe we have a meeting location, or if you're a really techie ham, you can use an NVIS antenna setup. This communications can be a really big realm. But you need to just have the plan. And any of you that need help with communications, like I said, I am here to serve you and help you prepare, so feel free to reach out to me in the comments. Travel planning. Make sure that you don't just run off into the woods unless you absolutely have to. Try to have a location to go to. Have multiple routes to get there, and be creative. So, when you have your map out and you're looking at it, look for areas of least resistance or paths of least resistance. So there could be bicycle paths, railroads. If you think about gas lines or electric utility lines, they typically, mow down all the trees and brush to put those in. Those are really good ways of travel. Aqueducts, things like that. Be creative. have a backup means of travel. So, for example, a 4-tiered system would be primarily rely on your car. If your car gets stuck in traffic, then hopefully you have a bicycle with a small trailer or child carrier attached to it to haul your gear. You can use that. But maybe your bike can't go any further because it's a road bike and you need to go into the woods, so you ditch that. And you're on foot now, but at least you have that trailer that you can carry behind you and take some weight off your shoulders. And if it gets to the point where you need to ditch that, you need to go full-on bug-out bag, well then that's your 4th tier. But do anticipate redundancy in your plan. Road blockages, how to deal with them. So yeah, if you come along a down tree or a bolt or a gated lock gate, how are you going to deal with that? Do you have a chainsaw? Do you have bolt cutters? Navigation, make sure you don't rely just on GPS. Make sure you have maps and preferably compass and you know how to use it. And then caches, also another idea for something to supplement your travel planning with. And last but not least, community, mental, emotional, and faith. Don't be a lone wolf. Do stress yourself out in terms of physical conditioning, so like exercise or winter camping, or basically being out in any unideal conditions, because that is all training for our minds. And other things to do is stock up on the comfort items. We talked about how you need to add spices to your food as a psychological benefit, but essential oils work, gum and chocolate. And then here's a big one. Show of hands, who here has paper photos of their family in their bug-out bag? I'd be curious to know what the results of that would be. If you guys remember the show Revolution, one of the ladies there had all her photos of her kids on her phone, and there was no more electricity anywhere, so she lost all family photos and memories. So again, there's a big emotional component to this, big faith-based component to this, so don't forget about that. So, as a wrap-up, I did fly through really quick lots of the stuff, but the main thing that I want to communicate to you is use all the major buckets that I showed you in the first couple slides, and then add a 2nd tier, 3rd tier, 4th tier by adding questions of what if, what if, what if. And once you got that whole brainstorming map figured out, then you look at your individual situation, your income, your resources, all that stuff, and you start prioritizing. So, again, I will always try to reach out to all of you via comments. So if you have questions, feel free to reach out. And all the best to you all. I'll see you later.